North Carolina wrapping up a spring practice under Larry Fedora on April 9th. We bring in Jeff Greenberg from sportsglutton.com and also inside the ACC to help us break down the Tar Heels, of course, coming off that division championship with a perfect regular season in the ACC at 8-0. Jeff, it's always a good time breaking down the Powder Blue. So your thoughts as you got the game notes and reviewed some of the highlights from last Saturday, and really even going back through the full month of 15 sessions in the spring.
Yeah, I think if you ask Coach Fedora, they were extremely pleased with the progress they made in the spring. Their spring game format was different, similar to what I saw a lot of teams do, though, where they didn't really match up a blue versus white as much as they did offense versus defense, and then rotate guys through that way. I saw some other teams do that. Some of that was due to injuries and things they were trying to prevent from worsening. So they tried to put together a format they could. And actually, after the game, Fedora had mentioned they used a scoring system that they had learned some years back from the Seahawks. So you could just stick to offense and defense and have different ways for the defense to earn points, like with 3 and outs, turnovers, and things like that. But what you got to see is a lot of the guys that would be starting going against the starters. So that's the benefit, at least, of just doing offense and defense. You weren't having like the number 1 offense against the number 2 defense, which some other teams did as well. So you did get to see ones versus ones, which was important. But I think in the spring overall, what they were happy with is a few things. Progress on offense. And what I'm talking about there is, Marquise Williams is gone, and moving Mitch Trubisky into the position where, according to Fedora, he needed to earn the spot, not just be given the spot. And that was a big deal, and it's still a big deal. And some of Fedora's reasoning with that is not just earning it for the coaches, but earning it in front of the teammates, because everybody else has to earn their position too. And there's a respect to that, knowing that if you go out there and do your best to earn it, it's just going to carry that much more weight into the offseason. So he was happy with how Trubisky handled that. And then, that on the other side of the ball, what you're dealing with this spring was year 2 of Gene Chizik. And I think what they were really excited about, and they talked about multiple times, was last year, really, they only installed the base defense, and that's it. I mean, some of the players returning talked about how going into game 1, they really only had 2 or 3 main basic calls they used, and that was it. Well, now they could build off that base, show different fronts, put in different blitzes, and I think they were really happy with the progress the defense made on that side.
Marquise Williams, going back to the quarterback position, obviously finished off his career in style, bringing home a division championship for the Tar Heels for the first time in a long, long time. Did have some issues turning over the ball at times and wasn't the most accurate passer. Jeff, we've been talking for probably about 3 years about North Carolina football, and you have really set me up on Mitch Trubisky. Finally, it seems like we've been talking about this kid forever. We're finally going to see him on the field, and wow, that first night against Georgia is going to be something else. He faces a quality defense, and more so just the athleticism on the other side. You talk about Chizik coming in, making a huge difference on defense, and that they're going to be able to do more and have done more in spring practice than they've been able to practice in the past. Just to note, a horrendous defense that gave up points to everyone. So we just kind of reviewed it before we came on in regards to the letdown against Clemson, but shoot, Bama gave up 40 to Clemson. Everybody gave up points to Clemson. And then they got hit for 49 against Baylor. But this was a defense that gave up points to everyone. And to go up the ladder to 35th in the country against a quality schedule, only giving up 22.6 points per game, 79th in yardage, but kept people off the scoreboard, that was impressive.
Yeah, I think people had high hopes for Coach Chizik when he came in and delivered in year 1. I mean, when you just mentioned the scoring per game, I think people were hoping that maybe they would show just some improvement, and to go basically from 120 something to in the 30s was a bigger leap than I think most people expected. And it was obviously welcome, because with the kind of offense they're always going to have, if they can hold people down from a scoring perspective, regardless of yards, then they were going to always have a chance to be in those games and win those games. And they showed that, like you said, especially through the regular season. That's what gave them that 11-1 record. Even their 1 loss in the regular season, they only gave up 17 points. So that was a big deal. And a lot of it was changing their mindset, changing their attitude, and showing them the way to do things bit by bit, which is why, again, they were excited this spring that they could expand off that and hope for better things. That they have 9 starters back on defense. And I think what they're really excited about too is that when you look at their 2 deep, they're not just familiar names in the 1 deep. You're starting to recognize all the names in the 2 deep, and in some cases the 3 deep, because they've all gotten that much more playing time. The one concern that they're looking at is their defensive line depth. That's where they're thin. I think their second concern would be at linebacker. They lost 2 seniors in Rashad and Shatner, but they've got young playmakers that can come up. I know they're really excited about Andre Smith. He was injured in spring, so they're hoping him to come back full healthy in the fall. Cason Collins, they're looking for him to make a huge leap. And then they're really excited about one of their early enrollees, Jonathan Smith, linebacker, who, from what Fedora has said through every practice, he has really picked things up as if he's been here for more than just a couple months.
You know, Jeff, when sometimes the football team's underachieved and they get a little bit beat up by the critics, a coach can play on their pride, bring that out of them, and they can overachieve or at least live up to expectations. So when North Carolina goes from 6-7 to competing for an ACC championship, they certainly didn't have Swiss cheese, even on defense. Even when they were totally getting ripped to shreds, these are quality ACC athletes. They've recruited well. So the material was there to get it done. So they did get it done. They get to a quality bowl game. They go 8-0 in the regular season in the ACC. But to come back and say, that's over, boys, come back to the grind. You're not going to be able to sneak up on anyone this year. You got the target on your chest for all the division foes. Your thoughts about the ability of this team possibly to come back, make it happen again?
Well, I think it starts at the top with Coach Fedora, who, if you see him in any interview and you get to know him, he is never satisfied. And not in a bad way, not in a, never looks at the good things, but just they didn't go 13-0. They didn't go 14-0. There were losses on that schedule. So in his mind, they can be better. But what he reinforces to them is now they see what it takes to win that division title, what it takes to win week in and week out. And he's hoping that they use that as a foundation of, you've had a taste of what it's like to win. We didn't get exactly to where you wanted to be, is what he's telling them. But we know what we can do to get there. And so I think right now, no one's kind of high on themselves, because he looks at this season as a different season from last season. This team is going to be different than last year's team. In fact, some of the leadership and things like that is what he's waiting to see develop as they enter into the fall. So I think the good news is they did celebrate last week. They got their division title rings, but I think they've turned that page, and he's got them focused on September 3rd with that opener at Georgia, which is something to quickly put your mind on the next season and off last season.
All right, Jeff Greenberg, always setting us straight on the North Carolina Tar Heels. Jeff, not that you don't already have enough to do, but between now and that first week of August, would love to get you back as much as possible to break down the positional units for the Tar Heels.
Absolutely.
And obviously, Jeff, the big goal is between now and that time, keep these guys healthy and keep them out of trouble. So if no news is good news between now and August.
Absolutely. I think, that's the one good thing about summer is the injury possibilities go down way low. And the way they do a lot of their summer programs now, they keep the guys together actually a lot. So kind of keeps everybody at bay, I think.
All right, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.